By the Brexit Minister, Steve Baker. Welcome to the Daily Politics. Steve, Theresa May conceded that there will have to be less access to the single market after Brexit. But David Davis, as you will remember, famously promised last year the exact same benefits in terms of access to the single market after Brexit as we have now. Has the government realised, just as Anna Soubry has said, Brexit reality, it's impossible to have that?
The Prime Minister set out an ambitious and credible plan for a deep and special economic partnership, and I think we can be proud of what's been set out. So I think if we go forwards with the plan that she's put there, it will serve our interests and the European Union's.
Right, but do you accept that what was promised to the UK by the Brexit Secretary and others is now impossible?
Well, I accept that the Prime Minister's speech, as set out, should be taken on its own terms.
Right.
She set out how we can have an enduring relationship with the European Union. It's a vision around which the country can unite, and I'm looking forward to delivering it.
Can you actually unite and support the speech and some of the suggestion she made in terms of Britain staying in permanent lockstep with the EU on key areas like state aid, workers' rights and the environment? Were you pleased to hear that?
Well, as you know, we've been on a journey through these speeches where the Secretary of State set out that we're going to be a high standards country. And of course we can accept that because, as the Prime Minister said, there's no serious political constituency in this country to dramatically reduce standards.
Right, and including the European Court of Justice still arbitrating in certain areas post-Brexit.
But let's not get carried away on this.
Well, I'm not getting carried away. I'm just saying as it was, in certain areas, in areas, do you accept that? I've
listened very carefully to the language you've used, but the language which people should refer to is the Prime Minister's, because she was absolutely clear that the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice will end in the UK.
Well, hang on.
And no, that's
her
what
quote
she said.
is EU law and decisions of the European Court of Justice will continue to affect us.
I'm answering your question. So, for number one, the jurisdiction of the ECJ will end in the UK. Number two, Parliament will be sovereign, as the Prime Minister said. But the example that she gave is a very pertinent one. Even the United States of America was affected by the ECJ's judgment on safe harbour. And that's the reality of international trade. Of course, when you cooperate with trading partners, their own domestic decisions will have an effect on trading relations, and that is to be expected.
Right, but she did say that Parliament is sovereign, as you have just echoed, but it would also have the right to reject those rules and regulations in the future. So is it your belief that we stay close to them for now, those high standards that you've talked about, but there is the possibility they could be rejected further down the line?
This is a matter for Parliament, isn't it? I mean, this is the point. We're going to become
We're
going to become a normal, independent parliamentary democracy operating to high standards with liberty under the rule, under the rule of law, all those things which the Prime Minister set out. And we're going to be on the basis of a normal style of free trade agreement with the European Union, albeit with unprecedented ambition.
Right. I mean, David Davis wrote to Tory MPs this week to say Britain wouldn't pay the £40 billion divorce bill until all of the issues have been resolved. Is that still on the table? Should it still be on the table as a threat to the EU if they do not look at some of the offers made by Theresa May?
It's not a threat. The reality of the negotiations is that it's a principle that nothing's agreed till everything's agreed, and it's as simple as that.
Right. So that is a threat that could actually be reneged on?
Nobody's threatening anyone. We're approaching these talks in a spirit of optimism, expecting to succeed. But the principle which the EU has articulated, and which we also accept, is that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed.
Right. No deal is still better than a bad deal. How much planning is then going forward for a no deal?
Well, what the Prime Minister explained there was that what we can't do is accept the rights of Canada and the obligations of Norway. And that is surely something which people can agree to. So, of course, any responsible government must prepare for all possible outcomes, and we continue to do that.
Right. What planning is being done for that?
We have a wide range of plans which run right across all government departments. Where there is relevant work to be done, we are doing it.
Right. I mean, is that still a very real option, then, in the minds of government and ministers like you?
The relevant option, the very real option, is that we move forward now, prioritising the negotiation of an implementation period, which we intend to deliver and which we hope and expect to deliver in March. And once we have agreed the implementation period, to get on with negotiating for the vision which the Prime Minister has set out.
She repeated and articulated a sort of blue skies vision still for the border with Ireland and Northern Ireland. No acceptance of a customs union to get over that issue, as some in Parliament have suggested. How would it work?
So one of the points about the customs union is it doesn't answer all of the questions.
Sure,
because
but answer how she thinks it'll work.
Well, what the Taoiseach and the Prime Minister have agreed is that the first route to solving the set of problems which arise on the border is through our future economic partnership. This is why we need a whole set of mutual recognition agreements which deal with the regulations on each side. It's why we need to have tariff-free access, and it's why we need to have a customs agreement.
Well, good afternoon,
if we do all
and
of the
I'm
things
grateful
which the
to the
Prime
Lord
Minister set out,
Mayor and all his...
including mutual recognition of trusted traders, then I believe that we can deliver a borderless, a frictionless border in Northern Ireland.
With no checks, no
and
lorries
I'm
being
grateful to
stopped
the Lord
at any
Mayor
point
and
at all.
all
It would
his
be
team at
totally
Mansion
frictionless.
House
I
for
am
hosting us
convinced
this
that
afternoon.
we can do it. But what I think people need to do is start being optimistic and looking, for example, at the report of the European Parliament, Smart Borders 2.0, and having a really serious think about what is possible if there's the political will.
And you're happy with a future close alliance in terms of rules and regulations with the EU?
Of course, I am happy with the way the Prime Minister has articulated the speech, which is that Parliament will be sovereign, the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice will end, and we will continue to be a free enterprise country based on high standards, leading a race to the top.
Brexit Minister Steve Baker, thank you for coming to see us so quickly after